Well, we've certainly been honored and certainly have been blessed by just being a part of the meeting this week or the conference, and appreciate the insight that Dr. Sexton has in the direction that he's leading. And I believe he's hit the nail on the head there with confronting unbelief, and confronting unbelief in its source and not in the results. The devil has thrown us a lie, and we're dealing with the results rather than the source. And unless you know the source, you're going to miss the target. And unless you know how to get to the source, you're going to ruin some lives and destroy some families. And so the insight that Dr. Sexton has towards what he's trying to get done this week has really blessed my heart. And I'm thankful that God's given him that insight to do what he is doing here. And leadership, I like what he said when he said, come on, let's go. Let's get behind me and let's go. And that's what we need is leaders of that nature. So what a blessing. I've not had any contact with the school here. I wasn't even aware that it existed until Dr. Knickerbocker came through Tahlequah, and most people can't even pronounce Tahlequah, but he came and he was a blessing to us, brought some folks up, brought some kids up, and then a little bit later on, we had him to preach for us at our mission conference, and then at our Indian Baptist Missions camp meeting. And it was such a blessing to the Indian folks there at Canadian, and just really blessed our hearts in a mighty way. And then Brother Cart comes through, and Brother Cart's been wondering how in the world are these two Indians getting around. They don't have a computer, they don't have an iPhone, and all of that. And I think it's getting him frustrated there. Every time people say something, they always refer to that, and I like them. I enjoy the technology and that you're utilizing, and how useful it is in getting the gospel out, and how useful an instrument it can be to reach our Native Americans. And I've enjoyed just seeing all the technology that's being used here. But I never figured out how anybody could get a record player in a car. I couldn't figure out how they were going to keep that needle on that record player. But they did. And the technology that you have here could be a great blessing to the Indian people. Live streaming and utilizing the method of getting the gospel out by electronic method would be a tremendous blessing to the Indian folks, and that's what we need. We need preparation for Indian preachers. Man, I was gun barrel straight and just as empty when it came to dealing with the source of the problems that our Indian folks was experiencing. I knew doctrinally I was sound, but I didn't have the answers. I didn't go to the source of the problem, and all we dealt with was just the results. And I realized that people are looking for answers. They're looking for specifics, and they're looking for, what do I need to do, and what can I do, and what can God do for me? And specifically, where is it in the Bible? They had the gospel, yes. They were saved, but they didn't know where to go and what to do. And people are looking for those specific answers. The world has it. If you're a plumber, you go to the source of the problem. You don't deal with the symptom. If you're a mechanic, you give them the symptom and they go to the source and find the problem, go right directly to the source. And every occupation, they're going to the source of the problem and solving it. And it's sad to say we're still dealing with symptoms and results. And my, what insight Dr. Sexton had in confronting unbelief at its source. And that's exactly what we need on our Indian reservations. Our Indian reservations are in great need of this very thing that we're experiencing this week. And we've got 562 Indian tribes, and 226 of them are right there in Alaska. 315 reservations across the United States and Alaska. And the Navajo Reservation, this group right down here, the Navajo Reservation has the largest, 15 some odd million acres of land. Reservations down to 10 acres of land, but yet still lacking what is necessary, and that is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And California is the largest population, Oklahoma, Arizona, and New Mexico and Washington. Largest nations of the Indian population today. But in Luke chapter 12, verse 47 says, "And that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes." If you're a servant of God and you know the Lord's will and you prepare not yourself, then God says, "I'm going to whip you." And God's not going to prepare you. You're going to have to prepare yourself. And we need schools like this, and we need methods of reaching our Indian people so that we can prepare them. They're not going to leave the reservations. They're not going to leave their homes. But if there was some way that we could live stream the classes so that they could take them in their homes and on their computers and all of those things, then what a blessing that would be. They wouldn't have to leave the reservation. They wouldn't have to leave their homes. And that's our greatest need. But he also says if you know the Lord's will and you prepare yourself and you don't do the will of God, then God says, "I'm going to whip you anyway." So it's best to know the Lord's will and prepare yourself and then do the Lord's will, and you'll get out of going to the woodshed. And that's our greatest need on the Indian reservations today, because our Indian men that are surrendering to preach are in need of preparing. Oh, they're doctrinally straight, no problem there. We've always had the Baptist faith from way back. The Moravian missionaries had a great part in leading many of the leaders that guided the Cherokee nations and many other nations. They were Christians and they were saved, and they had a great part in that, to be able to lead a nation with the wisdom and understanding that God gave them. So we've always had the Baptist faith amongst the Indian people. We never had to battle with any other false religion. But we've had more of a battle with Baptists than anything else. But thank goodness that you have what you have here. And our greatest need is that very thing, is some way to take the technology that you have and make it available to the Indian people so that they won't have to leave their reservations, but they can stay home and learn and prepare themselves. And then not only prepare themselves, but do the will of God.